Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We're continuing our look into, well, navigating that tricky intersection of faith, family, and work.
That's right. And building on our last chat, where we landed on balance being less about some perfect juggling act.
And more about knowing what truly matters most, prioritizing.
Exactly. And you brought up Proverbs 16.3, commit to the Lord whatever you do, and he will establish your plans. That feels like a great starting point.
It really does. But the big question is, how do we actually live that out, practically speaking?
Well, that's what we're hoping to explore today. We want to get into some real strategies, look at examples from people actually doing it, entrepreneurs, parents.
And we've been digging into the Faith Beams GP podcast for some of these stories and insights, right?
Yeah, they've shared some really powerful conversations. Our goal here is to pull out some of that wisdom, maybe offer some encouragement for you listening.
Okay, let's jump into those stories. First up from the podcast was Tanya, mom of 5, running her own business. That's already a lot.
It really is. And what stood out was how she intentionally set spiritual goals right alongside her business goals, not separate things.
How did that actually look day to day? I mean, setting the goals is one thing.
Right. She talked about how making time for family devotional, say in the morning,
Yeah.
it wasn't just ticking a spiritual box.
Yeah.
It actually set the tone.
Yeah.
It brought a kind of calm, a shared focus that she felt carried into the chaos of the workday, like setting your compass first thing.
I like that image, setting your compass. Okay.
Mhm.
Then there was Derek, the dad, working in construction management. Very different environment.
Very different, high pressure, unpredictable.
So how did faith fit in there?
Well, his approach wasn't about avoiding the chaos. It was about finding anchors within it. He made a real point of carving out moments for prayer.
Even brief ones.
Yeah, even just short pauses during the day. And he talked about how his faith shaped his leadership style, both on the job site
Yeah.
and at home as a dad. Interesting. So it influenced everything. It seemed to be the foundation, yeah. Not just a Sunday thing, but how he operated Monday through Saturday, too.
Got it. And then Priya and Raj, the couple with the tech startup, another high pressure zone.
Definitely. Especially with finances,
Right.
the uncertainty in that world.
So how did faith play out for them?
Trust was a big theme, trusting God with the money side of things. But what really struck me was their commitment to Sabbath rest.
Taking that intentional time off.
Exactly. They saw it not as a luxury or something that would slow them down, but as absolutely essential
Essential for what?
for their marriage, their own well-being, and interestingly, for the creativity and health of the company itself. Kind of pushes back against that hustle culture idea.
That you have to work 247 to succeed.
Right.
So pulling these stories together, Tanya, Derek, Priya, and Raj, what's the common thread? It's more than just saying have faith, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It seems to be about intentional integration, actively inviting God into the messy middle of work and family.
Not adding another task,
But
but changing the approach.
yeah, tapping into a source of wisdom and peace that helps you handle the demands differently. It's bringing those worlds together.
Okay, that makes sense. We see the why. So now let's get practical. The how. What strategies came up on the Faith Beams GP podcast that people can actually use?
One that came up again and again was prioritizing prayer, but specifically doing it together as a couple or as a whole family.
Even if it's short.
Yeah, listeners shared that even 5 or 10 minutes of shared prayer could really reset the day, strengthen connections, bring focus. A small thing with a big impact.
That feels doable. Okay, what else? I remember hearing about a shared family calendar.
Yes, but not just for work stuff or kids' activities. It was about actually blocking out family time, like really scheduling it in.
Treating it like an important meeting you can't miss.
Exactly. It makes it intentional. You're deciding ahead of time that this time is protected. It's a way to, put your priorities into practice visually.
That leads to another point they raised, learning to say no. That's hard for a lot of us.
Oh, definitely. The pressure is real. But the idea was about protecting your time and energy for the things that really align with your God-given priorities.
So it requires some discernment, figuring out what those priorities are.
Precisely. It means saying no, sometimes even to good things, so you have the capacity for the best things, the things you feel called to. Focusing your energy.
And the last big strategy was asking for help, right? Leaning on your community.
Yes. Church, friends, mentors, whoever's in your corner. The message was clear. You don't have to do this alone.
We weren't designed to.
Exactly. Having that support network is huge for practical help, emotional boosts, just knowing someone gets it.
And it ties back to that scripture reminder, Matthew 11:28.
Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. It's okay to admit you're weary. It's okay to lean on God and others.
Those are really helpful practical steps. And hearing stories from other listeners on the podcast, people in maybe different situations, that also helps, doesn't it?
It really does. Makes it feel less theoretical, more relatable. Like Sarah, the single mom juggling studies, work, and her daughter.
Her story really hit home. It showed that reliance on God, especially when things feel overwhelming.
Yeah, it painted a picture of balance, not as a perfect state, but as that moment-by-moment dependence, finding strength outside yourself.
Balance looks different for everyone. It's not always neat.
So true. And then there was James, the entrepreneur with twins.
Right, he talked about simple things like family dinners and bedtime prayers.
Yeah, those small, consistent rituals, they seem to be his anchor points.
Amidst all the business stress and raising young kids,
They became these regular touchstones during the week. Moments to connect, refocus on what matters. It shows you don't always need grand gestures.
small things, done consistently, it adds up.
Definitely.
Okay, so this brings us to some of the scriptures that were highlighted on the podcast. These verses offer such a powerful foundation.
They really do. Let's look at Isaiah 40, verses 29 to 31. He gives strength to the weary.
And increases the power of the weak.
But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. Wow.
That promise of renewed strength, right?
Yeah.
When you feel completely drained, hope in God makes the difference. You're not relying just on yourself.
Exactly. It points beyond our own limited energy. And then there's that powerful verse in Philippians.
Philippians 4:3. I can do all this through him who gives me strength. So direct.
It really is. It shifts the focus, doesn't it? From what we can or can't do to what's possible with God's strength working in us, overcoming limitations.
Building on that, the Faith Beams GP podcast also shared these faith declarations, affirmations. I found them really helpful to hear.
Yeah, they're like actively choosing to align your thinking with God's truth. Let's go through them. The first, God guides my work and my home.
That just brings a sense of peace, doesn't it? Like you're not steering the ship alone. Okay, second, I am called to serve with love and purpose.
That changes how you see daily tasks, right? Whether it's a work project or changing a diaper, it's service with purpose. Third, my family is blessed by God's grace.
A reminder of the undeserved kindness that surrounds our families, even when things are messy. Okay, fourth, I rest in God's peace each day.
So important. Finding that stillness, relying on His peace, not just our own frantic efforts. And the last one, I am equipped and strengthened by Christ.
That feels like a powerful statement of confidence, based not on ourselves, but on Him.
Exactly. Saying these out loud intentionally, it can be a really grounding practice, reinforcing where our true strength comes from.
So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive, drawing from the Faith Beams GP podcast, it feels like the big takeaway isn't about finding some elusive, perfect balance.
No, it seems much more about intentionally weaving faith into the fabric of everyday life, the work, the home, all of it.
We've heard the stories, looked at practical steps reflected on Scripture.
And hopefully found some encouragement in knowing others are navigating this too, and that God provides the strength.
It really boils down to prioritizing that relationship with God, doesn't it? That seems to bring clarity to everything else.
It does. It helps order the other priorities and brings, hopefully, a more purposeful, peaceful way through all the demands.
So for you listening, maybe take a moment. What's one thing from our chat today that really stood out to you?
Yeah, maybe one small step you could take this week. Just one thing to invite faith more intentionally into your work or your family life. What might that look like?
And here's maybe a final thought to chew on. How could that consciously focusing on your faith, even in just one small part of your busy life?
How could that create a ripple effect? Maybe leading to more peace, more integration than you expect, something to reflect on personally.